It's Wednesday the 3rd of February, this is Photo Walkthrough, episode 47, tutorial 12, chapter 2. And I'd just like to start by saying best wishes to Sherry and Lee of Arvada, Colorado. I know you guys had a frightening time recently, and I'm really pleased to hear that everything turned out okay. Now, I know from your emails that most of you are an episode or two behind, so I figured what I would do is pre-announce our new competition. And I'm so excited to have Wacom on board this time. I've been wittering on about Wacom graphics tablets pretty much since I started doing the show a year ago, and I've always thought that a graphics tablet would make a wonderful competition prize. So, Wacom have offered us an Intuos 3 A6 wide graphics tablet as the competition prize for our next competition, which should kick off in about 2 weeks' time. That will make it the middle to the end of February for a competition start, and I expect it to run for 4 weeks from that point. If you're interested in joining in, then visit the Photo Walkthrough website at www.photowalkthrough.com, and all the information will be there about how to enter and when all the deadlines are. So if you're interested in winning a Wacom Intuos 3 A6 wide graphics tablet, please swing by the website and try and join in. I would hate for you to miss the chance. Yes, and while we're on the subject of competitions, don't forget you can win a Low Pro camera bag in Martin Bailey's competition, which is running at martinbaileyphotography.com. Okay, for this week's composition segment, I figured I'd do something a little bit different. Those of you that watch my Flickr account will have seen last week that I tried a little experiment which was inspired by something that came up on the Photocast Network Roundtable. Iberian X Perello mentioned there that he had been doing a daily exercise where he'd been trying to take photos of everyday objects every day and just try and be a bit creative with it, try to prove to himself that there's always a picture to take, even if you're not in what you would expect to be the most picturesque place, and it's just a great creativity exercise. So I tried the same thing myself last week. I picked the most mundane object I could think of in my house, which was my fridge, and I took a photo of that every day for 5 days, just to see if I could force myself to be a little bit more creative, and just sort of exercise those brain cells. And there's another really important part of this process, which is forcing yourself to actually take some photographs. We all get into these ruts every now and then where we go for days without taking any photographs, or maybe weeks, or in some cases months, without taking any pictures, and you kind of find yourself thinking, well, you know, I'd love it if I was taking more pictures, but I'm never going anywhere where there are pictures to take. So this is about breaking one of the elements of that, and it's forcing yourself to take a photograph every day, even if it's of something really mundane. And you may as well, while you're doing it, try and teach yourself to be a little more creative. So what I did last week was take these photographs, 5 photographs of my fridge, and it worked out okay. I wasn't overly happy with any of the photos especially, but what it did do is it forced me to think a little bit, and it forced me to take a photograph each day, and also, because I'm working here, it forced me to be as frugal as I could be with the post-processing, because I don't always have a lot of time to do post-processing, especially with doing the show and running my own family business. So I think it was an extremely valuable exercise, and it's something I will do again. I'm not doing it this week, but I'm going to try and aim to do something next week where I'm taking another photograph each day, and I'm going to pick a different subject. But so my composition segment today really is about doing exactly this. What I think we should all try and do in the coming week, anyone that wants to take part, remember these assignments are totally voluntary. Only take part if it's something that interests you and something that you want to do. And the whole purpose of this is to take photographs and improve, not really necessarily to show off photographs that you've done in the past, although if they're particularly good, then that might be okay. But the purpose here is to learn. So what I think we should all do in the coming week is pick something. It doesn't have to be something mundane, but I picked something mundane just because it really added a little extra challenge. But pick something and stick to it for the whole week. And Monday to Friday, during the week, take a photo every day and post it. So this is going to be one of those few occasions where in the PW assignments group on Flickr, remember it's PW_assignments on Flickr. I would like you to post 5 pictures instead of 1. And if we are absolutely deluge with pictures by the end of the week, then I don't promise to display all of them at the end of the show, but I'll do my level best to show as many as I can. So yeah, stick to a single subject for the whole week, take 1 photo a day, be as creative as you can. The purpose here is to expand your creative brain and try and use some of the composition rules that we have talked about in previous weeks, and of course in coming weeks I'll have more of those as well, but this week I wanted to try something just a little bit different. So that's your assignment for this week. Pick 1 subject, just for a few ideas. If you wanted to pick something mundane in your house, then it could be pick your sofa, or pick a bookshelf, or anything that you can find in cupboards. I mean, there's a good example. Go into your kitchen and each day open a cupboard and take something out and take a photograph of it. Or walk down the street, take the same walk every day for 5 days and try and find 5 different worthwhile photos on the same walk. All sorts of different ideas of things that you could try. Pick a subject for yourself and be true to it for the whole week. Okay, right, that's the composition assignment for this week. Let's get on with today's tutorial. Now, I've had a computer crash recently. This is my first image that I'm recording on the newly built computer, so apologies while I just drag some palettes out of the way a little bit. Now I do want the layers palette, so let's have that there. Here we go. Right, and then as always, I don't like to work in this little window here. It's a little better if you do that with it, but it's even better if you press the F key on your keyboard, and that gives you a nice full screen view, and you can drag the image to a part of the screen where you can work on it by holding down the space bar and then clicking and dragging with your mouse, and that drags it around. And also remember, I zoom in and out with my scroll wheel on my mouse, which you can set by going into Edit, Preferences, General, and there's a zoom with scroll wheel there, which is just the most fantastic facility, like that. So here's our image as we started out. As always, I'd like to start just by talking about what my intentions are for this image. I've talked already about what I was thinking about while I was taking the picture. I was thinking about the rays in particular and the colours in particular while I was stood there looking at the sky. The colours were just amazing. The camera hasn't really quite captured just how amazing it looked on the day. So I would like to reproduce the way it looked to me on the day. And particularly these rays, which were extremely visible on the day, have come out a little bit grey and a little bit muddy here, and I love the way the ray comes past the front of the cloud here, just giving us that feeling that it's coming towards us. So I definitely want to bring all of those things out. So I'll be emphasising the rays, I'll be improving the colours in general, but particularly the colour of the sky and the colour of the light coming through the clouds, that orange light. And also I'll probably do a little bit to just bring up the detail on the sea there. There's not a lot of information there, to be honest with you, because it's very dark, and as you can see it's a little bit sort of muddy, so I won't be able to do a lot with that. There's only so much you can do to bring information out when there's not information there, but those are the things I'm going to try and do. Now I think the first thing is there is one little blemish here, and it's that little cloud just there. So first things first, let's get our basic pixels right. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to hit the new layer button here at the bottom of the layers palette, and I'm going to double click the name and choose Spot Edit and rename it to a spot editing layer. And then as usual I'm going to do 1 or 2 or 3 different possible tools can do this job for us. Here we've got the little band-aid with the dotted line behind it. That's the spot healing brush tool, and that is the make it go away brush that I've mentioned before. So just zooming in on what we want to edit. Remember, sample all layers, we need to turn that on if we want to spot edit onto a new layer. And as always, the square bracket keys on our British or American keyboards, apologies to the rest of you, will make our brush size larger or smaller. And just grabbing the graphics tablet, I'm just going to paint over the top of that little cloud, and that particular tool is going to do a very nice job of removing that, because that tool works very well when what we want to edit is surrounded by a nice continuous colour and is not got any textures nearby that we don't want. So for example, if I was to clone here, it might not do it, but let's just see. No, it's not done it. If I was to clone there, sometimes what it'll do, it picks a nearby bit of texture randomly, and it might have, for example, picked some texture off the edge of the cloud here, which would have been, obviously that would have been a bad bit of texture to replace in the sky, and we would have been able to see that edit. Just remember, there are other tools available if the change you want to make isn't working well with the spot healing brush tool. You can use the healing brush tool and tell, with this tool it's basically the same deal, but you tell it which bit of texture you want to copy in, and it sorts out the colours for you. The patch tool does a similar job. You surround the area you want to replace, and and remember, we can't do that onto a new layer. You just drag and drop onto a different bit of the image to get the texture you want. So and that's just a quick roundup of spot editing. So that's our cloud removed. The next step really is to get into those colours. The colours in particular are the thing that I wanted to bring out most in this image. So I think we'll start with the sky, and we're going to start by doing a HueSaturation layer. So if I go to the bottom of the layers palette, we've got the adjustment layers button down here, and if I click on that and choose HueSaturation, that brings up this HueSaturation window for us. And remember, in the top here, the drop down, we can choose all the different colours, and we've not just got red, greens and blues, but we've got the opposites as well. So remember, the opposite of red is cyan, the opposite of green is magenta, and the opposite of blue is yellow. So we've got all 6 colours around the edge of the colour wheel available to us here, and as you can see, we can get at those with control 1 through 6. So if I just cycle through those, you can see this is choosing a bit of the colour wheel. We've got the entire colour wheel represented along the bottom here, and as I go through this, it's choosing different bits of the colour wheel as I go around. So that's why they're in the order they're in, because they're in the order that they are on the colour wheel. Now the colour I want to modify here is cyan. In fact, it's that colour there, so I can click on that, and that will then centre the region that I'm editing here onto that part of the sky, onto that part of the colour wheel. And what I want to do is I want to just move that a little bit more towards blue. It's already very cyan, but I want to move it a little more towards blue, so I'm just going to drag the hue up, and you can see the edit on screen, but you need to be quite subtle with this, because you can really make some very obvious edits if you do this. So I'm just going to go up to about there, and then I'm going to just pull the saturation up, and probably about there. Now that's started to make some real visible edits on the clouds, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if I can reduce the width of the area of the colour spectrum that this is affecting. And as you can see, if I drag this, the dark grey area is the area that is 100% affected, and then between the vertical line and the little sort of triangular bookend here is where it sort of tapers off the edit. So if I drag in the lighter grey area left and right, I can pull back in some of the I'm just going to drag that bookend in a little bit, make the gradient area a little bit smaller, and as I can drag that in, you can see that's affecting the clouds less and less. I'm going to drag them, and I'm just doing this by eye on the screen here, and you can see let's just press OK on that, and then zoom in here, and then double click on the little black and white circle icon just to get our hue saturation back, and you can see it's actually reds too. It's giving us. Now that's not right, is it? Should be down here. So just dragging that. Let's center it on there, just on that There we go, that's getting a bit better. We don't want that going up into the green. So that's getting more like what I'm after. Let's press OK on that and just turn that edit on and off. I had some feedback in email that said it would be useful to be able to see what the edits had done. I thought I did this already a little bit, but it's a fair comment. I'll try and just show you a little bit more in future what I've been doing. So all these edits are very, very subjective, and it takes quite a while to get used to looking at the screen and being able to see what it is you're expecting to see. But always it's easier to turn the layer on and off to be able to see what the edit has done for you. Now, the place that you're going to be able to see what this edit's done is here in the sky. And if I turn this on and off, you can see this area of blue here has started to extend more down into what was quite a sort of a yellowy area here, and it's helping to delineate these rays, these crepuscular rays going out the top of the clouds. So what I'm working on here is the sky and the blue, and I want to bring out a gradient of cyan from here up to sort of dark blue up here. And what I'm going to do to help that is I'm going to add a standard bitmap layer, so just a new layer at the bottom here, and I'm going to call this sky gradient, and I'm going to set the blending mode to soft light. So I've got a sky gradient layer with nothing in it at the moment, and then I'm going to go to the gradient tool, and I'm going to choose black and white as my colours. And then from the gradient selector up here, when you get the gradient tool you get all the gradient selector buttons up the top here. I want a linear gradient just from one colour straight to another in a straight line, and I'm going to choose this second one along, which is from foreground colour to transparent. So if I click that and then click out there, and now if I just draw a line, click and drag and hold down the shift key, because I can do angles, but if you hold down the shift key it constrains it to a vertical, and do that with it. That now just brings a little bit more darkness to the top of the scene. It's probably a little bit much. Let's just drag that opacity back, and that's helping us go from a sort of a cyan here to a more of a dark blue here. Now if I tweak my HueSaturation, go back into my cyans, let's just see if we can tweak that a little bit more so that it now gives us the kind of edit we want on the sky. Right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not having any success here with making this sky look right without wrecking the clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it wreck the clouds. So I'm going to actually destroy that layer. I'm going to take that HueSaturation layer and drop it into the trash, and then I'm going to do a new HueSaturation layer, and I'm going to choose the cyans manually, and I'm going to just do this so that it looks the way I want it to look without any worry about whether or not the clouds look right. And then I'll mask the change out. So here's what I'm after. That's now really looking like I wanted. So I've dragged it a little bit up towards the blue, and I've increased the saturation a great deal, and we're only operating on the cyans in the image. So if I just, with this box still up, tick and untick the preview button here, and you look at the blues in the sky, you can see the change much more clearly now, and it is definitely making these rays a lot more delineated. This is not all done with layer masks, and we will do a lot of work with layer masks soon, but the way these rays are made to be more visible is not just with pen work, it's also with colour. So that's the change, but it's also kind of wrecking these clouds a little bit. So I'm going to just leave that on, and then with the layer mask that comes already attached to our HueSaturation layer, I'm going to click on the layer mask, and I'm going to choose black as my foreground colour just by switching them with that little arrow key. And then I'm going to put my glasses on. You don't need to do that step, that's just because I'm blind. And then with our layer mask selected, and with my Wacom tablet pen in my hand, I'm going to choose the brush tool by pressing B. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to just gently paint black on the layer mask over the top of those clouds where the colour change we've just done is making them look too blue. because it's definitely starting to introduce some nasty banding in those clouds, and that blue is really very visible, so I'm having to press fairly hard here. Now the reason I'm doing that is because the brush I've got selected, let's go to the brush tool, let's get the brushes palette open. I showed you this before, but I'm going to do it again because, as I say, this is the first recording I've done with the newly built machine. A couple of days ago my machine died very dramatically, and I lost all my configuration for Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is show you how I set up my usual standard brush. Now, as you can see here, this brush is showing us that this is a pressure stroke going from light pressure through to hard pressure in the middle through to light pressure again at the end, and it's showing that the pressure setting for this brush is set to size, and I don't want it to control size, I want it to control how opaque the brush is. So shape dynamics is set. I do want shape dynamics, but I don't want it controlled by pen pressure. I want other dynamics, and I want opacity controlled by pen pressure. So going back to my presets, that should be our new brush. And if I press the new brush button at the bottom of the window there, it's going to ask us for a brush name, and I'm going to call it John's default brush. And this is the brush I use all of the time. This is almost all of my masking edits I do with this brush, and because it's my favourite brush, I want it in the at the top of the presets list. So if you press this little arrow in the top corner, we get the preset manager, and because we're in the brushes palette, it knows it's the brushes presets we want to edit. So I'll just drag this window a little bit larger, and there's our new brush at the bottom. I can drag and drop that right to the top, so that's now the first brush in our presets list. I press done on that. I can close the brushes palette now as well, or just drag it out of the way because it isn't closing. That's a problem to do with the screen recording software. It doesn't like letting me close that window. So now if I go into my brushes palette, there at the top of the list is my new brush. So okay, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, we'll finish up with the submissions to last week's Leading Lines assignment, and also as usual this will be accompanied by my favourite band Marillion. You can find more about them at www.marillion.com. Photo Walkthrough is a weekly video podcast. You can subscribe through iTunes or by visiting www.photowalkthrough.com. Subscription is free, and new shows will be automatically downloaded as soon as they're released. And if you'd like to get in touch with the show, email photowalkthrough@gmail.com or leave a comment using the audio comments box on our homepage.
Photocastnetwork.com, your photography resource in the podosphere. Photocastnetwork.com